I recently saw you and your wife arguing about, I don't remember what it was.
Some small thing.
Yeah, nothing important. And I wondered, I always had the idea in my mind that enlightened people don't argue, that for them arguments don't exist anymore. Do you mind telling us what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, because see, there's this idea that um, everything's peace and bliss and happiness for the jiva when you know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see any kind of conflict operating in a situation, you assume that the person who's having that conflict is not enlightened.
Right.
Right? And in fact, this topic is dealt with very in the Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
in the second chapter, or maybe it's the third chapter. I can't recall the exact place, but Arjuna, who's a seeker, he asked Krishna about the teacher,
Yeah.
who's an enlightened person. He asked him, "How do you recognize these enlightened people?"
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "How do they walk?
Yeah.
How do they talk? How do they eat? How do they sleep, and so forth and so on?
How do they dress?
How do they dress, and the whole business?" And it's interesting because Krishna doesn't answer that question
Mm-hmm.
the way Arjuna thinks.
Mm.
And the reason he doesn't answer that question is because an enlightened person is a free person.
All right.
So to say that a free person can't act a certain way or think a certain way or be a certain way means what? That it's not free.
Mm.
Because if you're free, you have to be able to argue, you have to be free to argue,
Right.
right? So,
What is there to argue about if you are enlightened?
well, the presupposition of that statement is what? Is that there's something wrong with arguing.
Yeah.
Now, my wife knows who she is, and I know who I am.
Mm.
We both know we're awareness. In fact, our relationship is totally based on the knowledge that I know who I am and she knows who we are, and there's no difference between us. But our jivas, our personalities, come from different places and different times. Different countries, born in different places and times. So her conditioning is different from my conditioning.
Yeah.
So we have, on that level, on a jiva level, we have arguments about things.
Mm.
It's natural, or it's normal to do that.
Yeah, you could say her upbringing, her cultural environment was different
Was
from yours.
producing the idea that she was arguing from, and my cultural conditioning and my background. Now, the idea that you're suggesting is that, well, my cultural conditioning and my background shouldn't have any effect on who I am.
Mm.
Now, it doesn't, if I'm the self. If I'm the jiva, it does have an effect. But if I'm the self, I know that whatever effect that a situation has on my jiva doesn't actually affect me. We call that mithya.
Mm-hmm.
It's like acting in a movie. So in our movie, we had an argument. Now, are we not enlightened when we're having an argument? Or are we only enlightened when we're loving each other, hugging and kissing each other? Does that prove we're enlightened? Huh?
Yeah, that's a common idea, I think, in the Western world, that enlightened people don't argue.
Yeah.
They smile and laugh about such things.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're saying here is that a person's behavior determines what they know and what they don't know.
Mm.
But we're saying no, the knowledge and the knower is beyond all action. That's the teaching.
Mm.
The self is actionless awareness. It's not affected by action. So no matter what my jiva does, it doesn't affect me.
Mm.
And no matter what her jiva does, it doesn't affect her.
Mm.
Understand? So you have this, because people don't understand this, you have this idea that enlightened person is a saint.
Yeah.
That they have no ego, and that they have no negativity,
Mm.
that all they are is peace and love, and they wander around all day long looking for people to help.
Right.
right? Now, we're not, if we're not looking for people to help because we don't think there's anything wrong with anybody, because we see everybody as the self.
Yeah.
But if somebody comes and wants help and asks for help, then we understand that that person doesn't know who they are, and that they're asking us. So then we give them, we help try to help them. But it's not because we feel the need to help anybody.
Mm.
Now, saints tend to, and this may not be true for all, saints tend to feel compelled to help.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? If you feel compelled to help, it means that you're not the self, because the self's okay with everything.
Yeah.
Huh? It's okay with pain and suffering. It's okay with ego, with ugliness and evil and all that. It's not bothered by any of that.
Mm.
Understand? So the whole problem, the whole question is this distinction between the jiva, the ego, the person, and the self,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing the difference between the two, and letting the jiva or the ego be what it is.
Mm.
Now, does that mean that I can break any rule I want to? That I can violate any rule I want to? I'm free to violate any? Yes, I am. That's true. But that doesn't mean I will
Mm.
necessarily.
It depends on your upbringing, on your cultural
Well,
values.
not really. What it depends upon is that is my knowledge that I don't have anything to gain by breaking the rules.
Ah.
Huh?
Yeah, still the same.
If I'm still the same.
Yeah.
If I break the rule, I'm the same. If I follow the rule, I'm the same.
Mm.
So there's no advantage to doing this. Right? So, and this is very hard for people to understand.
Mm.
Mhm. And out of this teaching, you get, because of this, you get this crazy wisdom idea.
Yeah.
We discussed that earlier in the car when we were at the bank. Is that people take advantage of this idea and say that they need to prove that they're enlightenment by showing others that they can break Dharma and has no effect on them.
Mm.
Well, it doesn't have any effect on the self, but it does have an effect on the jiva. This is why what you find these fallen yogis, these people who break the rules, yes, they know they're the self, but what? Then they end up in jail or disgraced or in the court of law or whatever it is, because, or they lose their disciples or whatever it is, because yes, it didn't affect the self, but it certainly affected their jivas.
Yeah.
Which means what? They weren't really enlightened at all.
Mm.
Because they wouldn't have done it in the first place if they had. But then, if the ego co-opts the enlightenment and survives the knowledge that I'm the self, in other words, if the doer is not destroyed by that, the idea of the doer or the doership is not destroyed by the knowledge, then you have the vasanas are still operating, and they will cause the so-called enlightened person to break the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a very important topic, the difference between a saint and a jnani or a mahatma. Right? A mahatma can be a saint. A jnani or enlightened person can be a saint. Right? And a saint can be a mahatma also.
Yeah.
But there's no one-to-one correlation, because it's all, behavior is no proof of enlightenment or knowledge.
Yeah.